Greetings Guardians, my name is Bife here. Off the cuff video today, much shorter than in most instances, so excuse me if there are a few more ums and ahs than usual. I have notes, not a script. That being said, I also wanted to inform you of one little point, which is that I'm about to go on break. That means that I will only be doing fresh videos every weekly reset, and yeah, everything else is going to be the pre-scheduled stuff that I have. So if there's anything major or revelatory that happens outside of the weekly story, you might not get a video on it, just because I'm taking time off. That being said, we have some stuff to talk about, particularly from the lore of the lore book that dropped this week, because it describes the moment when the Echo dropped into the Vex network. Anyway, before we get to that, just a few other bits and pieces from the lore this week. So let's cover them first. This week we learned that Saint has come around to accepting that he might not be the same as the Saint 14 from this timeline, but that doesn't really matter as much to him as it used to. He's basically made peace with the idea that he is not the exact same Saint that Osiris fell in love with originally, and that the Osiris here is different from the one he knew. We learn all of this thanks to the radio message at the very end. Saint gives us a very lengthy talk, and basically accepts that the Osiris here is still someone he cares about. So, I mean, that's good. It feels like movement in a positive direction on that front of things. But I imagine this is only going to be shifted up and dramatically impacted by what happens next week. More on that in a second. This week we delved deeper into the core of Nessus in an attempt to follow the Radiolarian flow all the way to its core, which is likely where the conductor is, at the heart of all of the Radiolaria. When we eventually reach the core, we will probably find them, but for the moment we were able to see what the actual underbelly of Nessus looks like, and yeah, I guess this is what all Vex planetoids look like when they have been completely transformed. The only difference is that where the Infinite Forest, which is the other example that we've seen, is this kind of world-defying cloudscape with Vex towers falling down from the ceiling, the interior of Nessus is more of a dark, cavernous space, a great labyrinth of sorts. However, this is not all we discovered. We discovered the boss of this battleground, and we discovered that the flow of Radiolaria kind of ended with them. In order to understand where the flow goes properly, we would need to chart it, and we discovered that Failsafe was only able to do this for a certain amount. There is one core solution to this, and that's data back in the Infinite Forest on Mercury. Take a listen to what Ikora says.
Guardian, there's something I should discuss with you. Something I'm reluctant to suggest to Saint and Osiris. I think you'll see why. Failsafe believes she could open a portal straight to the conductor. She says she could extrapolate the coordinates by combining the new Vex data you've been collecting with her years of observations of the Nessus Vex. But she would need to compare it against control data, gathered from Vex isolated from the Nessus network. She'd need an enormous amount of data, centuries of it, captured with perfect clarity, and preserved by the Vex themselves. Our options are limited, and dangerous. There is only one accessible database with that kind of fidelity. The mind of Saint 14, the deceased Saint 14, who is still laid to rest in the Infinite Forest. Our future may depend on Saint. Again.
So it looks like it's time for another chapter of the Perfect Paradox to play itself out, and it's likely going to be this place where we actually get our new version of Perfect Paradox once again. I don't think there's going to be anything too crazy in this mission when it comes to combat, although I could be wrong. The last time we were here, we killed possibly one of the most important foes in all of Saint 14's timeline, namely the Martyrmind. Agioctis, I believe was its name. Agioctis is gone, and the Vex will never be able to recreate that experiment without some kind of dramatic assistance. It took them almost all their resources to create one construct capable of draining the light of a single specific Guardian. So, I mean, that was not exactly a successful moment for them. But it's going to be really interesting regardless to see Saint return to this, so whilst the gameplay side of it is not necessarily going to be incredible, I am looking forward to seeing what happens on the narrative side. The old saint, our saint from our timeline, and the saint that we brought back? Yeah, seeing those two side by side will be a strange moment indeed, and I wonder which way it's going to push Saint. Is he going to sit there and realize the conductor's words are true and that he's not worthy of being the man that he sees before him? Or is he going to only be more reinforced by this? I mean, the radio message did sit there and imply that Saint 14 did believe that he might be worthy. But seeing something like this that's going to potentially either affirm or deny that particular token of faith argument, I don't know. It's going to be something that will shift Saint up. Regardless, that's next week's story, and I imagine that's going to be a really big, exciting one. As for how all of this feels, well, again, I think that there are some things that definitely need to be improved on. For starters, they need to make sure they're absolutely cutting down on all the busy work. Again, the ability to go and do the battleground is excellent. I feel like the context of doing busy work this week has been thrown into an interesting bit of contrast, though. This is a little bit of quick critique on things, but if you've played through the story, you know about the frog. You know about Captain Jacobson. And you know, that was one of the few times where I really didn't mind running back and forth between the helm, because the context was really funny, it was really silly, and it was engaging. Just because, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just a little frog, and you're just building an enclosure, and Failsafe is sitting there at the very end of your entire endeavor in that research quest and is saying, "We have saved the frogs!" And that's great. You know, I like that. By that same token, I know every single quest can't be this, but I feel as though if we are going to get these moments where we're forced to run back and forth between the helm and everything with that kind of samey context, at least let's have the window dressing around it being different, and that's what the frog does. I can't believe I'm talking about a damn frog. I can't believe I've been talking about it for a minute. Let's move on. New lore book also dropped this week, and the new lore book is something I want to take a moment to focus on. I'm not going to do a massive in-depth reading here, but what I am going to do is talk about it, because it's probably one of the most important lore books in all of Echoes, because it describes the moment where the Echo pierced into the Vex network, and where someone interacted with it first. This is really important because of a few different reasons. First of all, it shows the various residents of the Vex network actually perceiving the Echo for the first time. This is a really important moment because it basically sits there and shows that the Vex didn't really understand what to do with it at first, but there were other denizens within the network that absolutely did. First of all, you have to consider the 227 copies of the Ishtar Researchers, which, well, yeah, they're still there, and it appears that they all started reaching upwards toward the Echo, and it states at the very end that only one of them could be first. It appears that that first was probably one of the copies of Maya Sundaresh, likely M-Sund 12. All that being said, though, there's more that's really disturbing within this lore book. Whilst the Echo pierced into the network, it also appears that there are other things that are still within the network that lie as remnants of other things. Namely, we see what appears to be Osiris's Echo. Not the Echo in terms of, hey, you know, we're sitting here with this powerful object that the conductor is holding. No, I mean the kind of glowing, luminous copies of him that we saw back in Curse of Osiris. I don't understand how those things still exist when Osiris proper has lost his light, but that's how it read to me. It's entirely possible that this is a first-time reading thing and I've got that interpretation wrong, but I don't see how else it can be described. And then there is the really big line that jumps out at me and leaves me questioning what the hell is in the Vex network. There is something that is described there, and I'm going to read this verbatim for just a second. The little excerpt from Chapter 5 of Polyphony, where all this comes from, has one paragraph where it talks about how everyone is starting to perceive the Echo, and then it starts like this. The great quiet thing, the Knotworm, kept its eyes closed and ignored the call. It was too soon, it decided. It shivered, the motion forming cascading bubbles of new hypothetical simulations in which it did not shiver. These contradictions soured and burst, scattering nutrients into the network. What do you mean the Great Quiet Thing is what I'm asking here. What do you mean the Not-Worm? Is this a proto-worm god? And how the hell has it ended up in the Vex network? Is it a Not-Worm because it's a dragon of some kind? The Great Quiet Thing? What in the world is going on here? Is this something that's moving towards explaining the potential relationship between the Ahamkara and the Worm Gods? Is this something which explains that because it makes reference to perhaps what might be and what is, with the whole note of these contradictions soured and burst and scattered nutrients into the network? This, by the way, implying the difference between what the reality of the situation is and what the reality of the situation might be. In other words, the anthem anathema, which is what the Ahamkara used to feed. I don't know, but regardless, the Great Quiet Thing, the Not-Worm, that's a plot thread I'm going to keep an eye on, because I have never heard of there being anything inside the Vex network that wasn't either a Vex or something the Vex had absorbed. And whatever this thing is, that's kind of alarming. So yeah, not great, but also terrifying possibility. Who knows what might be in there. This is a really quick roundup, so I'm not going to go into too much more detail, but for the moment, I wanted to go ahead and say that there are still some positive signs on this. And I wanted to also go ahead and say that much as there are moments where the story isn't itself going to feel like it's formatted the best, there is some good stuff going on here. I feel like the formatting will feel better when we do get that change in episode 2, aka Revenant, where we're doing all of this at once. I just hope that they have stories that they're willing to push forward which in themselves get wild and weird and continue on that trend. It's all very well writing about this weird stuff like the Great Quiet Thing, the Not-Worm. I hope we see that, because whatever it is, that's pretty ridiculous sounding, and whatever it may be leads to fascinating questions and possibilities. It's likely the case that we travel back and see something of Saint in the major part of the story next week. Who knows, maybe when we get that data we will also have our reveal of the Conductor. They were revealed partially in the opening trailer for this act, so who knows, maybe by next week when we get the full bulk of the story, we'll see what's what. Either way, that's all from me for now. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, you know what to do. Go ahead and hit the like button. Leave some thoughts of your own down below in the comments section if you have any. What do you think this last thing is? I know I'm obsessing over it, but the phrase Not-Worm doesn't just get dropped without any good reason in Destiny. So I want to know what you think this is. Proto-worm god? Some kind of Ahamkara? Some kind of worm god? Somehow a not-worm? I'm not sure. Let me know. Very interested to see what you all think. And as a quick note for that, the spelling is W-O-R-M, not W-Y-R-M. So this isn't a dragon-type worm by that particular spelling. It's more close to the worm gods by that spelling. Either way, thank you very much for watching, and know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.